Ansel Adams is America's most revered photographer, the world's leading figure in landscape photography. Adams is considered one of the most outstanding craftsmen in photography. He often prints the same negative again and again in order to achieve flawless pictures of extraordinary tonal virtuosity, a technique which has earned him a worldwide reputation.
Hello, everybody. You are now on Artist to Artist, a new format. What is it? I, Andrea Calabresi, as an artist, professional printer, and teacher, I will talk you about the artist's impressions about another artist. What does this mean? This is not the impression that could have a critique. It's not the opinion of an historian. It's not the approach of the amateur, which normally venerates the artist. This is the approach of an artist, and this means that it can be harshly critical on some aspect of an artist's work. Because as an artist, I feel we have the duty of expressing clear opinion and sometimes the duty of strong refusal of somebody else's work. It is true that everything must be seen in the context of its time, but sometimes the heritage is still alive, is part of our everyday life, is not part of the past, it's part of the present. And so we have to react to it. We need to express our thoughts. I would really like to know what do you think about this format. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment, and if you like it, share. And think about his heritage. We shall, I think, divide at least in three parts what Ansel Adams left us. One very important part is his technique, the zone system. The other very important part is influence on the popular idea of landscape, because Ansel Adams' landscape, or better, some of the Ansel Adams landscapes are part of the popular culture, and they have a profound influence still today on the idea of landscape we still have many years after his death. The third part is about what Ansel Adams left to the other artists and to the artists doing research on landscape. And this is quite problematic because, in my opinion, the Ansel Adams ideas landscape were kinda already surpassed or old even during his lifetime. So the first aspect is the influence of Ansel Adams in the popular culture. This is immense, even today. And this is a problem for an artist because for many amateurs, making a landscape looking like those of Ansel Adams is still today a goal. While our idea of the world has changed, but not our idea of landscape. And this is also an ethical problem because we know much more about nature, preservation, and how the world works than Ansel Adams did at his times. So one of the reasons I want to talk about Ansel Adams is because he still continuously proposed as an ideal for landscapes.
And the shapes of nature are then organized in the camera, in the mind first, and in the format, and develop towards a form statement relationship.
We shall think about this theory of the shapes and forms, this wish to put order in a chaotic world that's kind of contradictory. Why do you want to put order in something that to human eye is chaotic? So this idea of order is totally human, is human-made. It's a mixture of positivistic and religious approach to life, as we should see, I don't know, God's will in the landscape. We know it's a production of chaos, and I think we should relate to chaos without ordering it in beautiful composition and stupendous tonal rendition. So this approach of putting order in chaos, I think, is the approach of a conqueror and a religious conqueror. And I think this is a barrier between us and nature, between us and the cycle of life, between us and the geological development. This vision that's so strong that somehow contradicts his love for nature, because he was an active nature preservationist. The technical heritage of Ansel Adams, mainly the zone system, developed by Ansel Adams himself and Fred Archer, too much often forgotten. We shall thank both for the zone system. The zone system is a tool for visualization. What is visualization? Is the idea you have in front of your subject, your idea on tonality, on contrast, on luminosity, and the zone system helps you translate that into a printed image. So it's a tool for visualization.
Actually, there's two ways. One is to take an average exposure, just shoot, you know, and I hate that word, but click. And then you process and you expect some miracles to happen. The sad fact is they very seldom happen. The attitude of the creative photographer, like, for instance, Edward West and Stigner's, people in that caliber, that they saw very clearly in their mind's eye, or in other words, they visualized the image before they made the photograph. Then the technique or the craft is simply applied as required. And while you do have certain, you might say, enhancements as you print, things details become revealed, you never can escape the original visualization. And you shouldn't. I mean, that's the negative, and you've got it.
What's very sad about the zone system is that it is very often misunderstood. Most barbarous misunderstanding of the zone system is that the zone system is meant to make images that look like those made by Ansel Adams. This is total bullshit. The zone system is a tool for visualization, whatever is your visualization. So I do landscape that are in their conception are quite the opposite of those of Ansel Adams, but still I use the zone system. The other sad thing about the zone system, this is really a very common but totally stupid misunderstanding, is that the zone system is meant only for those using large format and sheet film, and also only black and white. So why? The zone system works with slide film, works with film, with any size of film. I've been using the zone system in 35mm in shooting slide. Of course, I use 3 cameras for that, but it is possible. It works. So, stupid misunderstanding. The other sad misunderstanding about the zone system is that some people think that the zone system is meant to produce such a perfect negative that requires no work in printing. While this is also contrary to the idea of Ansel Adams, because Ansel Adams conceived the negative as the written part, as the music score, and the printing as the actual performance.
And I'm guilty of creating a cliche, which I use very often, is that in actuality, the negative is like the composer's score. All the information's there. And then the print is a performance. See, so you interpret this score at varying aesthetic emotional levels, but never far enough away to violate the essential concept.
So the idea of the zone system is thus to produce the best music score to be played in the darkroom, not to produce a score that's already done. And his work in the darkroom really exemplifies this. So he really worked on his print to perfect them, but he could perfect them because the negative done with the zone system allowed his work of post-production, let's say, with contemporary terms. So the zone system is total genius, okay? So thanks Ansel, thanks Fred, this is superb. Sadly, it is misunderstood. I would really appreciate if you get into the zone system because it also has a very profound philosophical importance. And the philosophical importance of it is that the process itself is part of the art. So this is very modern on Ansel Adams. And this is revolutionary, this is important, and at the time of Ansel Adams, this was also really necessary. The other thing that really characterizes Ansel Adams' work is the seek for harmony.
In painting and sculpture, but there's certain aesthetic principles which are automatic and not necessarily taught or formalized. And there is also in photography, or partly in music, a very great necessity for discipline. That you've got to have the right notes.
Again, harmony is an intellectual construction, an historical intellectual construction, and the Ansel Adams idea of harmony is probably brought into images from his musical studies. Ansel Adams was a promising pianist. He said that he gave up his career as a concertist, piano player, for photography. And so we can see in his images this continuous search for the harmony, the balancing of all the parts of the images. Of course, the idea of harmony in the Ansel Adams work is articulated, is complex, as it is in music. So it's not banal rule of the third, it's articulated, but still characterizes his whole work. Another thing a bit sad of the fact that Ansel Adams is so popular is that, in fact, of the thousands of images he has taken, only a few are popular. Just a few. Those are seen in calendars, postcard, posters. There are in all the books and or the images you find putting Ansel Adams on Google. This kind of gives us a limited perspective on the Ansel Adams work that was much wider. So we can distinguish in his entire work an extreme coherence between theory and practice. The theory is mainly this thing of the shapes and forms. So in the nature, it's kind of chaotic shapes, and the photographer shows the forms hidden in it. It's like the enlightened photographer see God's will in the chaos, so he can bring an order in his images and in the world, question mark. But I think this is what be uncomfortable and what other people love instead in Ansel Adams images. Another controversial aspect of the Ansel Adams legacy is the relationship with pictorial photography. He was, along with Edward Weston, Dorothea Lange, and other photographers, the founder of the group F64. The aim of this group was to go beyond pictorial photography, or better, the certain kind of pictorial photography that was fashionable at the time. Those were kind of out of focus, grainy images with strong emotional effect. But the inspiration was to look like engravings, and their aesthetics wanted to mimic other art forms. The idea of the group F64s was to give artistic dignity to the aesthetic of photography itself. So sharpness, F64 is an aperture using large format camera, which gives maximum or huge depth of field. The idea was to have everything sharp, everything in focus, and that the aesthetic of the medium itself to be considered artistic in a time where it seemed it wasn't. Was this a new idea? Well, it was not. It was some sort of straight photography without certain kind of manipulation in the darkroom, because as we know, Adams did a lot of manipulation in the darkroom, but with a different aesthetical intent. If we think a photographer who was born 50 years before Ansel Adams, like Roger Fenton, you see it there, it was already straight photography. This was the aesthetic of photography. Now we consider him an artist. Maybe it wasn't so much considered at the time of Ansel Adams. So we needed to a new aesthetic. And the merit of the group F64 was to give success to this idea. The idea existed before, but it wasn't so successful, or it wasn't so pop or popular at the time of Ansel Adams. But the problem is that the idea of the image and the emphasis on tonality, the dark skies of Ansel Adams.
Is that what happens in the camera, or is that what happens in the printing?
No, you see, of course, again, none of my images are realistic in terms of values.
The attention Ansel Adams brings to the surface of the image is pictorial. So if we think not of the look but of the effect of pictorial photography, it was that convey the attention on the viewer on how the subject was transformed by the act of photography. So photographies as a transformation of reality, and this was considered artistic in a pictorial way. But the same happens when we look at Ansel Adams images. So his emphatic tonalities, his exaggerated contrasts, again bring the attention of the viewer on the ability of the photographer or the transformation of the perceived reality in image. So this is kind of contradictory. So you want to go beyond pictorial photography and you end up by inventing a new kind of pictorial photography. Bit funny. So pictorial photography has been surpassed by other photographers, not by Ansel Adams, though it was one of his aims. So what's left of Ansel Adams in research photography? In landscape, I don't think so much. Sounds to me old-fashioned already for the time. I can think, for example, of Robert Adams, who was conceiving another idea of a landscape, of approach to nature and man-made landscape at the same time, and that's much more modern. While, for example, in other works, not in landscape, but in portraiture, I think that Ansel Adams was really, really modern.
People, it is very difficult to try to manufacture something you just don't understand. And it's failures on my part, not on their part, or not necessarily in their character. It's just that I couldn't control it, so, but I did it as good as I could, and sometimes they liked it and sometimes they didn't.
He had an idea of the face of a person as a geographical landmark, like a stone formed in time by atmospheric events, rains, and landslides, and whatever. So he thought at the face of the person like a recording device of a man's life. So he wanted to take images, portraits of non-contingent expressions. So relaxed faces in a comfortable environment, so that what was marked on the face itself would tell us about the history of those persons. And this is kind of a very contemporary approach to portraiture. I can think of Thomas Hood now. So this heritage is important, while his idea on landscape, I think where he was most famous, I feel it surpassed. So there is research work that seems to be more advanced than popular culture, and maybe it is, maybe it's not. But in this case, it really seems so. So this is a controversial, critical point, something to think about. One thing that's also modern about Ansel Adams is the idea of the process itself as an art form, as I told you about the zone system, and this is reflected in all his work. So we can see, looking at his print, that must be seen live, because no reproduction can give justice to the extreme fineness of his work. He was super exigent about the quality of his prints, and he also was problematic when he was printing. So he was really continuously rethinking, re-elaborating what he could do in the prints. And an example of this continuous work on images interpretation that's really interesting is those done on Moonrise over Hernandez. This was one of his most famous images, and he has been printed in many thousands of samples during the years, and his interpretation on the image changing in time. It changed aesthetically, but not in the conception. So the original conception is maintained all the time with all the different interpretation. It's only perfected in his rendition on paper. So this thing about Ansel Adams of visualization, so the idea of the conception of the image before the image is actually made, and the creations of the tool to translate that in paper, it's very important and very modern. And in digital times, this is still revolutionary because with digital we work in another way. So we want the most manipulable file. So it is kind of a technical decision. While in Ansel Adams' work or in film photography, technique and expression merge together since the moment of the conception, because you will change exposure and field development according to your vision. And this doesn't happen in digital. Digital, it's all about post-production and a little bit in shooting. But shooting is about lighting, it's not about how to create the file, because you don't do that. In film photography, you create the file. So you create the score you will play in the darkroom. And this is an artistic process, and the idea of it Ansel Adams had, it is still revolutionary. What this make me think? The first thing is as an artist or creative person, the thing you must discuss first and always are your own tastes. You cannot accept other people's aesthetics without a struggle. You always must question why you like something, the reason why you like something, and put your ethics, your way of seeing the world into this discussion. And the other thing I would like to say is please interact with me, because I would like to share and confront my opinions with yours. Goodbye, see you in my next video.